Living green or sustainably is about more than saving on your electric bill and doing your part to protect natural resources. It is about a safer and healthier life for you and your family without sacrificing style, quality, or budget. This is a movement to provide all of us with clean air to breathe and water to drink, safe, healthy food to eat and places to live, and energy to run the places where we live, learn, play, and work. The Everyday Green Home Podcast helps you get the value of green for you, your family, and your community. Whether it's green homes, green living, or the people who make it happen, join me, Marla Esser Close, to learn how green and sustainability practices and products work for you and our world. Welcome to the Everyday Green Home Podcast. This is Marla, the Green Home Coach, and I am here today with Sara Ivey. We are both in the Oklahoma City area, which is really fun when I get to podcast with somebody right here on the home turf, even though we are extremely socially distanced being over the internet. But Sara, you are here today to help our listeners learn about Oklahoma Green Schools and also your role in what you do with the Department of Environmental Quality for the state of Oklahoma. So fill us in and introduce yourself.
Yeah, thanks for having me today. I'm excited to be here. So yes, I wear a couple of hats, and the first is I am the Executive Director of the Oklahoma Green Schools program. So we're going to talk about that today, but it involves working with schools all across Oklahoma on helping them go green and whatever that may look like to them. And my other role, which meshes very, very well with the Oklahoma Green Schools program, is I am the education coordinator for the Oklahoma Department of Environmental Quality. And they graciously allow me to work on the Oklahoma Green Schools program under the umbrella of the education coordinator because the two work so well together to accomplish the same mission. So
yes, I would see that you could have some economies of scale from that.
Definitely.
So how did you get interested in all of this, or how did it all happen?
I think it's the greening in your background comes from different places for everyone, but I know for a lot of people when we talk about it, it was something in our childhood that kind of sparked that interest. And my parents were great about getting my brother and I outdoors. We did lots of camping as kids and got to explore. But they also, at a very young age, introduced me to composting, recycling, gardening, that kind of stuff. And that's just what we did. I didn't really know there was anything unusual about it, but, recycling was not very big in the 1980s. I'm dating myself, but used to drive their recycling to a drop-off center that was only open on Saturday mornings. So they would, accumulate for whatever period of time, and then we'd go and haul it up there. So been doing that for a very long time, way before recycling was cool or common, but just got that in my blood. And then when I was in college, I got interested in environmental topics. I grew up in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and water is such a precious commodity there.
Yeah.
But I got very interested in water resources and the lack of water. And so studying all things environment and has led me to where I am today. So
it does tend to take on momentum.
It does.
I have to laugh because I'm thinking
every time I learn something new about an environmental topic, I'm kind of like the squirrel, the dog. See the squirrel?
I resemble that remark.
I got to follow that for a little while.
Yes. I'm a researcher at heart. So anytime I see something of interest, that's one of the downfalls of having a smartphone is that I can research anything at any moment and go down that rabbit hole.
Yes.
So I've had to learn to exercise some discipline some of the time.
Yes. A notepad for checking those things later and not in the moment sometimes is very helpful.
Yes, I totally understand. But you are so right about Albuquerque, and they've actually, parts of New Mexico have done quite a bit with water education. And I know just through some of the work of some of the people I meet in the home builders associations, they've really put some good stuff out there to help people just not waste so much and be cognizant. And
yes,
I think that's been one of the keys that I'm really seeing throughout this whole quote unquote green movement. because green is such a catch-all term. There's so many things to it. But is this, if we just don't waste as much, we make huge strides.
Absolutely.
When you start paying attention to it, it's kind of scary how much we waste unintentionally. And we're not trying to.
Right.
But it just sometimes very easy. And there we go.
It's often very easy. And it seems so natural for all of us, but really it's a relatively new way of living. Kind of this creating waste society. Our grandparents didn't live the same way we do, and so they definitely have a better grasp on using resources wisely. And, love the old butter containers that are relabeled with masking tape of what leftover is in there now, those kinds of things.
Hey, great giveaway containers, right?
Yes.
You don't need them back.
That's right. At Thanksgiving, here you go. Yeah.
My grandmother was a young woman in the Depression, and I remember as a kid, she had huge balls of tinfoil and rubber bands and jars, and she was definitely of that era, waste not, want not. We are starting to see a lot more of that come back, and starting in schools is such a great idea because, like you said, you never knew anything different. So having these programs in schools, I've got to guess, is a great way to connect those dots so that the school kids are exposed to these ways of thinking and what their benefits are and what the value is in it.
Yes. Well, and ultimately, every school kid is going to grow up to be a consumer and head of household somewhere, where they're making the decisions, and letting them understand where all those resources come from early on so they can make good decisions and set themselves up better. So understanding their bills, for example, what is a kilowatt hour and why am I being charged that way? And same with their water bill. If the meter is spinning, then the check writing is going to get bigger. Lots of little things, but ultimately it's money out of your pocket, but also those resources just literally going down the drain or wherever else.
So how does the Oklahoma Green Schools program work, just from a high level?
Yeah, so from the high level, we started the program initially just a group of lots of different interested parties that really wanted to take expertise. We had the expertise, we had the energy experts and the architects and the water people, so the people with the background knowledge, and we wanted to help the schools that didn't have that expertise to really save those resources, and those resources being the water and the energy and the landfill space, but most importantly, and it has been for the last decade and a half since we've been doing that, is their bottom line. We all know that schools are really, really struggling money-wise, and during the pandemic, that is definitely not changing for the better. So with electric bills, so many times, all of those bills, someone in a secretary's office just pays them. Unless they're a larger school district that has an energy manager or someone like that, they don't really think about small adjustments that can be made to really affect those bills. But also so many things within the school that are just unnecessary, things that might be plugged in and drawing a charge unnecessarily, or there could be a leak in a bathroom that no one reports for months and months, those kinds of things that are bad for resources, but bad for money and bad for health, ultimately, in a lot of cases. So the way the program works is we created 6 steps to certification. We want schools to be able to say they're a certified green school, and we have flagpole size flag that goes on a flagpole to promote the program within the school. But they ultimately investigate in 5 different areas to see where their school is baseline and what they could be doing better. And I'm assuming we're going to talk more in depth about all of those topics here in a minute.
We are. One of the things that you said that really struck me, and I hadn't really thought about it, is the Oklahoma Green Schools program isn't just for the students.
No.
it's for the schools. And
It is.
that symbiotic relationship is a great thing, because the better the students do, the better the schools do, and the better the schools do, the better the students do. So
Yeah.
I love that it is a more comprehensive approach, and that it truly helps both the institution as well as the recipients of that education.
Yeah, we really want to empower the students and the teachers at the school to feel like that they can make a difference in what happens at the school. And a lot of times it is, they are kind of providing that manpower and that data to give the administration the tools they need to make those big overarching decisions, whether it's, retrofitting lighting or updating an HVAC system or something.
That's so amazing. I cannot wait to dive into this more with you, which we will do as soon as we get back. Hang tight, y'all. Hey, this is Marla Close, the Green Home Coach, and I am the author of Living Green Effortlessly, Simple Choices for a Better Home. And in this book, besides talking about a bunch of stuff about green and sustainability products and practices you can easily take in your home, also talk about home maintenance and how important this is to having a home that serves you rather than you serving it. Seasonal home maintenance checklists are a big part of this, and I teamed up with colleague Tina Gleisner from Home Tips for Women to use her maintenance checklist, actually included in the book, starting on page 96. And if you have the book, look them up. But I wanted to give you a brief excerpt from the book to get you excited about why home maintenance checklists, I know that doesn't sound very exciting, but why they are so important. So, maintaining a home is actually a 3-part ongoing process: inspect, maintain, and update. To help you keep track of what you've done and plan to do, make notes on the checklist. First, inspect. If you've only got an hour to spare, pick one exterior side of the house or one room inside to inspect. Note the date you did this on the checklist and flag items needing maintenance or repairs so you can schedule time or make a list for your handyman or handywoman. Second, maintain. Keep your home safe, such as smoke detector batteries. Keep your home energy efficient, like furnace air filters, and prolong the useful life of many home features, like caulking bathroom tile. Write it down when you complete a task. Keeps you from guessing later on. And third, update. Take advantage of improved materials and fixtures. Upgrade to new building codes and evaluate when it makes more sense to make an improvement rather than repair, such as replacing a bathroom floor rather than repairing the grout. Check out the book or give me a holler and I'll hook you up online to get the maintenance checklist for yourself. If you'd like to have the entire book, please go to livinggreenbook.com for a multitude of ways to purchase it for yourself. Thanks again. This is Marla, the Green Home Coach. Well, Sarah, you and I are cracking up on the break. Where we were heading with talking about how the Green Schools program works and really the mission of the Green Schools and how that all comes together. And like we were saying, I love the fact that the Green Schools program helps both the student and the schools. And there's that relationship between both. So tell us a little bit more about how this all works.
Yeah, so again, we really wanted to help the schools become green, and we wanted to offer the expertise and then kind of teach them how they could help themselves. And through that process, we didn't want to go just to the school leaders, although that could have been one way to do it, but we really wanted to get the students involved. We thought that was important because, again, they're going to be growing up to be the household leaders and the entrepreneurs and the business people of tomorrow. And so if they understand environmental issues at a young age, then hopefully they'll carry those with them through their whole life.
I have a question real quick.
Sure. Yeah.
So when you say help the students and the school to be green, that's such a big term.
It is.
It catches a lot of things. Are there some specific parts of green that you're helping the schools to achieve?
Yes. Definitely. So Through the program, we do hands-on investigations, and this is really what gets the students involved and empowers them to become those leaders in their school. And we have a partnership with Project Learning Tree, which is a national environmental education curriculum. And about the time that the Oklahoma Green Schools program was getting started, they were developing their national Project Learning Tree Green Schools investigations. And so it seemed like a perfect opportunity to take the work that they were doing. All of their investigations were written by curriculum professionals with the help of teachers and piloted within schools. So they really had some good testing prior to just throwing them out there. So we knew they were good. But those investigations cover 5 different areas. The first is energy. The second is environmental quality, which is kind of the indoor building envelope. The third is school site, which is everything outdoor, because school sites can look so different. Some are, from charter schools that are in an old shopping mall to, a sprawling campus with acres and farms and barns and all of these amazing things. And then water and waste and recycling. So those are 5 different areas. And there are so many things to do in each investigation. And one of the reasons why the Department of Environmental Quality, where I work, is so gung-ho on this program is because so many of those topics are the same things that DEQ helps regulate within the state and also helps to try to promote better behavior, or not better.
No, I would go with
decisions. Informed decisions on those things. So the energy investigation, for example, that one probably has the most tools needed to do the investigation, but we have tools available that are free to check out. We also have all the information if teachers wanted to purchase their own kit. We have all the information on how they can buy all those tools to make their own kit. But it includes a kilowatt meter, which you plug into the wall, and it tells you how much energy, how many watts individual device is using. So that can be very eye-opening for kids to see.
Yes.
What their cell phone charge might be using versus a laptop or the smart board in the room. And if they bring devices from home, I usually bring in, like a toaster or a hairdryer, things like that, everyday items that they can see the various watts being used. The other tools that we use deal with lighting, because we really want to make sure the lighting in the room is optimal. That can impact test grades, it can impact mistakes, it can do so many pros and cons health-wise. So we want to make sure that the lighting is as good as it can be. And so we have light meters to see how many foot candles are at various points throughout the room. And we also have ballast testers. Those are looking to see if you have an electronic or a magnetic ballast, which an old ballast uses a lot more energy. A lot of users are moving to LEDs. So that's a great step forward. But schools that were built a long time ago might still have some of those ancient pieces that are real big energy hogs.
So they get into some of the technical terms, because foot candles is something I learned when I was actually getting my green accreditations.
Yes.
For those of you guys that don't know, it's how much light is put off at a foot. It's one of the standard measurements for light. The other one, I don't know if they get into it with your investigations, that you'll hear is lumens.
Right. And we do. And one thing that I think has been interesting just in the last 5 years or so, as LEDs have become more popular and you're going to replace light bulbs in your own home.
Right.
I think it's become a challenge for homeowners in the light bulb aisle.
Yes.
Replace this 40-watt bulb, and now it's got pins and everything else. And so you're not comparing apples to apples anymore, and it can be quite confusing. So
now we can go to our students and ask for help on that too, just like technology.
Yes. And I actually have a cheat sheet for that that's a little bit helpful, and we can put that in the show notes.
Ooh, that's a great idea, because that's a question I get a lot.
Yes. So yes, in energy, we're really looking at kind of anything with a plug that's drawing energy from the wall, and really looking at light. So schools will come up with all kinds of creative things after doing this energy investigation. Had a school in Tulsa that put on a play where the students were energy hogs and they were running rampant throughout the school. And so they had to teach their fellow students about stopping those energy hogs and all the different things they could do, like turning off the lights when you leave the classroom, making sure those computer labs are shut down or in standby mode at the end of the day, those types of things. Lots of poster campaigns. And I think one of my favorites is a couple schools have done this where they have lights out lunches. So they might pick one day a week, maybe it's Wednesdays, maybe it's Fridays, and the lights are off in the cafeteria if they have enough natural light coming in. And they'll do the lights out lunches because, hopefully you know what you're eating that day or what you brought.
Yeah, that's really creative.
Ton of artificial light to make that happen. So
I love that. Yeah. I think a lot of times, having that creative approach with no real constraints that sometimes we as adults have is probably very helpful.
Yes. So the next investigation that the students can do is the environmental quality. As I mentioned, that kind of deals with the building envelope. So it's indoor air quality. So that one really looks at the HVAC system. They're like counting vents and checking for dirty filters. And really, you really have to get your maintenance folks involved in this one with you. You can. Really, all of them. One of the things we recommend, one of the very first steps is when you're creating your green team, which might be a teacher and a group of students from class, or it might be an after-school group, or it might be the environmental science club, something like that, is to get your green team going, but get those helpers in the building that really do the work on a day-to-day basis and get them on your green team. So not only can you bounce ideas off of them, but you also really need to make sure they're on board with whatever your plans are. So talking about environmental quality, for example, if your maintenance guy is just completely unwilling to work with you, it's going to be a struggle to make any improvements. But if you have that person as part of the conversation from the get-go, then they're going to be much more willing to help you along the way. Same with you're trying to do a recycling or a composting and you don't have your cafeteria staff or your janitors and custodians on board, it's going to be a nightmare. And outdoor projects, if you're doing a garden and you don't have the person who weed eats or cuts the lawn, as part of the conversation, that butterfly garden might end up weed whacked. So, it's really finding the right people. And of course, you have to have administrators give you buy-in. You can't just start willy-nilly doing things around the school without making sure you get the proper approval. So we really make sure that those people are involved. But so for the indoor air quality, you're looking for mold and mildew. So many times the schools, you'll see the ceiling tiles that look like have been through a hurricane or something. I mean, they just look really bad. How often everything's getting cleaned. So dust is a big asthma trigger. And what cleaning products are being used? Are those the right things that are not going to cause asthma triggers as well, as far as harsh chemicals? Also for our high schools and upper schools, if there are laboratories and the chemical storage is not up to par, then that can be a very dangerous situation.
So a school could do a different investigation with different classes and be tackling a bunch of different issues as they're working through the investigations.
And we have had that happen. We've had where we had a green team with more than 160 students.
Wow.
They broke out into all kinds of different little clusters and each little group was doing their own thing. Or we'll have just one gung-ho group that maybe will tackle one thing at a time. So they might do energy first, then environmental quality. Very rarely are that you trying to do all of this at once because it can be overwhelming and extremely consuming as you're collecting the data. But one of the parts of the environmental quality investigation that I like the best, because it doesn't really fit anywhere else, is transportation. And so doing a transportation survey, how are the students getting to school? We have some schools where it's very walkable, others where it's almost impossible to walk to school. Are kids coming by bus? Are they being dropped off? What does the idling look like? So many times we've seen that bus idling zone or parent pickup line be right by where the HVAC air intake.
Oh, yeah, that's not good.
So then that goes back to indoor air quality. So those two definitely tie in together, but we've had some schools do some no idling zones, that type of stuff. And school site, as Yeah. I talk too much. So
You talk a lot because you know so much, and that's what we love.
if you need to rein me in or...
I know you're saying too much good stuff. So let's take a quick break. And when we come back, we'll cover the other 3 investigations. I also want to tee up for our listeners. You're going to help us understand, with a lot of schools being back virtual this fall for part or all of the week, there's some ways this can be used in a virtual or homeschool environment as well.
Absolutely. Yes.
We're going to touch on that. You've also got a ton of resources to share with us. So we're going to give all of you listeners a ton of resources to tackle one of these investigations or more, either on your own or with your class or with your school, all kinds of ways to do it, right?
Yes.
Stay tuned. We'll be right back. 5 myths of green homes are 5 things that you probably believe about green homes that may be costing you thousands of dollars. Which myth do you hear the most? Get your copy of 5 Myths at greenhomecoach.com and click on the button for 5 Myths of Green Homes. You can also connect with me on Facebook at Green Home Coach and let me know the green home myth you hear the most. I'll also share tips, products, and resources. Be sure to download your copy of 5 Myths of Green Homes now, and then check back to learn more. So today, chatting with Sara about Oklahoma Green Schools. And Sara, so many of the resources and the ideas you're talking about really apply to many green school programs that I understand a lot of green school programs across the United States. I worked with one with our U.S. Green Building Council when I was in St. Louis. Similar,
Yes,
a little different, but I'm guessing most of them have the same goals, and that's to improve the students and the buildings they're in and the folks that run that. Okay.
Yeah, you're right. There are so many resources out there and really great ones. So look at the U.S. Green Building Council Center for Green Schools. There's some great resources there. But yeah, there are quite a few programs. And if you Google it, you will find more than what you need, I'm sure.
An avalanche of information.
Exactly. And we can definitely link some of those in the program notes.
Awesome. Well, let's go on. We got the first 2 investigations.
We got the first 2
areas. We got energy and we got environmental quality. So what's next?
So the third one is school site. And as I mentioned, that's everything outside. So it's looking at pervious and impervious surfaces. So basically, if rain falls down, is it going to soak into the ground or run off? And that can vary widely on schools. But then looking at kind of just doing a survey on what does the school property look like? Do you have any outdoor green spaces that you can utilize for teaching and learning?
That's a big one right now.
It is. Yeah, because we need to be outdoors for virus safety, but just getting outdoors in general is so great. So we talk about edible gardens and gardening for wildlife, looking at natives and non-natives. My partners at the Oklahoma Conservation Commission are always great to help with any soil investigations that people might want to do. And then Oklahoma Forestry Services, who also is a sponsor of the Oklahoma Green Schools program, is a great resource for trees. So many trees are either aging or you might have trees with some bad health issues. And there are great resources for that. One of the resources I like to use is iTree, and I'll put a little bit of information about that in the show notes, but it's great for figuring out maybe what tree you want to plant and where, different environmental benefits it can offer.
I need that.
I know, but it's great because it'll show you, okay, if I plant this tree here, will it provide any shade and energy savings in the summer? It'll talk about water quality improvement, and it'll talk about CO2 benefits. So it's a really great, and then it puts a value on that tree as well, a monetary value. So
wow,
that's a great one. And then as far as waste and recycling, that one seems so straightforward, right? Okay, so we have this waste coming in and can't recycle any of it. But this one, you can get down and dirty. We really encourage them to do a trash audit. And this can be, it can be the cafeteria after lunch, however dirty you're willing to get. But really grab a tarp and throw everything on the ground and sort it out. That's the best way to know what exactly you're throwing away.
And how much of that do they typically find is food waste?
A lot. It's very big. That's a really big issue that the Environmental Protection Agency is trying to tackle right now. I know that's on a lot of people's radar. It's just how much food waste.
For multiple reasons. I mean, that could be its own podcast easily.
And in schools, I think it's probably even higher just because so often there are the rules of what kids are required to take on their trays. And it's not always they want to eat or are going to eat.
Yes.
Same with those milk cartons that they're required to take. So yeah, but so much of it is recyclable and schools are not doing a good enough job doing that for various reasons. And then again, with the food waste, so much of it could be composted and very, very few schools are composting for a variety of reasons. Lots of people are scared of it, scared of the smell, that it's going to attract, rodents or bugs or whatever else. But if it's done right, it doesn't have to do that.
And now you're back to working with your grounds maintenance people and
absolutely
getting everybody on the team.
Yeah. And there's lots of partners in the community, both in Tulsa and Oklahoma City. There's master composter groups through OSU Extension Services who love to help schools. So that's great. But one of the best things about this investigation, beyond looking at what you're throwing away, is questioning that. So, okay, if all of these things are ending up in our waste stream at the end of the day, what can we change in what we purchase so that we're not having this same trash? And this is a great thing to do at home as well. Really think about the products you're buying and what kind of containers they're coming in or packaging. And could you buy something different that is recyclable or has less waste or whatever that might be?
I'm a big advocate of that.
Yes. Yeah. Find the right size of an item. Maybe you don't need that big of a container. Maybe you need a larger container, whatever it might be. And then the last investigation is water. Again, on water, this one seems pretty straightforward, and in most ways it is. It's mainly in the investigation doing indoor water use, so checking for leaks and making sure that everything is operating the way it should, understanding where their water comes from and that kind of stuff. But also in this one, if there are big outdoor water users, landscaping water and fields and those kinds of things in high school can be very big water consumption users. And if somebody is not keeping an eye on that, that can be lots of money to the district. So that one, we have a few little tools, like we have just a bag that you put under your faucet that's going to tell you how many gallons per minute that faucet is using. But I think that's quite eye-opening to some people, that faucets can vary so much in the amount that go.
And toilets, if you have old toilets, they take a lot of water.
Absolutely. And in schools, they're often commercial toilets, so those are harder to know how much they're using, but they have those valve systems that can get, and really it's a very easy and low-cost fix to get those to be operating the way they should, but you got to have someone at the school who knows enough to do that.
Right.
Exactly. So those are the 5 investigations. And so what we ask schools to do to become certified is just do one of those. And it's going to look different for every school and every group and every age that's participating. But if they can get through that investigation, report back to us on what they did, then we'll come out and do that flag ceremony, and they'll get the big flag to hang on their flagpole. We say the flag doesn't mean you're done. It means you've started. It's like you've made that commitment. You're wanting to be a greener school, and you're putting this out there saying we're trying our best and making improvements every day. So we hope that leads to doing another investigation or having another group of students go through the same one and expose them to that information.
Do you find that it's contagious within the schools? Contagious in a good way. That's a dangerous word to use right now.
Right, that's true. Usually contagious is good. But yes, oftentimes it is. Usually you have to find that one champion at the school, and often that is the teacher, but sometimes it's a student that's just really gung-ho and has convinced somebody to say yes and be the sponsor of their club or whatever it may be. But yeah, once they get started, it's very contagious and they want to go on and do other things.
I could see how the buy-in would increase.
Absolutely. But I think some of the best moments for me have been seeing those kids, especially the elementary, like maybe 3rd, 4th, 5th grade, when they have done these investigations, they make a presentation to their principal or the superintendent or whoever it may be, and they tell them everything they've learned and make recommendations on what should be done at the school to make improvements. And they just have such a sense of pride and accomplishment. And those are just really great skills to see in such a young person.
Yeah.
So it's that's why I do it.
It's easy to see. So right now, we're recording this in August, and many students are figuring out how to go back to school, and it is across the board, across the state, across the county even, and the country. So we have many different options. I'm seeing kind of everything fall into like 3 buckets with, back to school, but a lot of social distancing and masks, et cetera. We're seeing split schedules and part homeschooling or virtual schooling and part in school with all the social distancing and masking. And then we're seeing a lot of parents also just opt to go with a homeschooling program, a micropod. There's all kinds of variations I'm seeing, but I'm going to just kind of go with the assumption that those 3 silos.
Yeah.
Those 3 ways are what's being most commonly pursued. So how could the Oklahoma Schools program be used in each of those different ways, those schooling ways?
So the great thing about this program is that we really wanted to design it so that it could be used in pretty much any scenario that you can think of. And we have had homeschool groups and church groups and things like that go through it before. Even though they may not have a flagpole to put the flag on at the end, there's still great information that can be obtained through doing the investigations. So no matter which of those situations you find yourself in for this upcoming school year, you can definitely participate. So the easiest way to do it is to go to our website, which is okgreenschools.org. And again, that's going to be in the show notes. But if you click on the How to Green Your School, that it walks you through all of the steps. And it's really pretty simple. So you can register, and then I will say, hello, I'm so happy that you want this. And if you're a teacher or a parent or whoever is going to be kind of leading the group, we have a Green Schools investigation binder. It has all the investigations printed out. I'd be happy to send that to you. So if you register, there's a little button that says, yes, click me or send me the printed copy of the investigations. If you don't want to go that route, or you just want to kind of explore all of this information on your own, all of this is available as free download on the Project Learning Tree website. And again, that's going to be in the show notes, but Project Learning Tree Green Schools, you do have to register, which requires giving them an email address. But other than that, they don't ask for a lot of information. Once they get that, then you're free to download those investigations on the computer or print them out yourselves. You can look at each individual investigation, or you can download all of them, whatever you want to do. So it's very cool because you can do a lot of these. I mentioned that we do have the tools, and those are available for checkout if anybody wants to use them. That's also on the Oklahoma Green Schools page under resources. And there's a Green Schools toolkit checkout.
Easy for you to say.
But you can do lots of parts of the investigation without any tools if you don't want to go that route.
So this could be part of a curriculum even.
Right.
Or if you're virtually or homeschooled, this could be part of your science work and math.
Yeah. And for teachers that might want to talk about some of these concepts with students, there are lots of great YouTube videos out there that kind of explain the background information on lots of these things. And then you can give students, a short assignment on what they could do around the house to explore things, whether it's checking for leaks. There's an easy way to check for toilet leaks is to put some food dye in the toilet or some Kool-Aid or something and let it sit for 15 minutes. And if you come back and there's color in the bowl, then you might need a new flapper, or something's going on with your toilet that you might want to examine. But they could investigate water bills, they could investigate energy bills, they can go out and look at their meter, see where that is and what it's doing. So lots of ways that you could have students do things at home. There's also, at the end of each investigation, a home connections page, which is meant for those when you're doing this in school as a group, which some people may be, but kind of to take that piece home with the students. So that part could still be done, whether you're teaching virtually, part-time, or as a homeschool group. Kind of send that home with everybody to get the whole family involved in thinking about that particular resource and what changes or things might need to be considered in your own home.
So many great resources. And my mind's just racing. Well, Sarah, I cannot thank you enough for sharing all this with our listeners. And you've mentioned some really great resources. So we'll make sure that we get all of those in the show notes.
Definitely.
And if you have questions, how do they reach you or the Oklahoma Schools program so that they can get those questions answered?
Yeah. So again, I wear two hats. So I have two emails, but they're both pretty easy. The first, if you want to reach me at OK Green Schools, it's just Sara, SARA, at okgreenschools.org. So it's all lowercase. And then if you want to reach me with my DEQ hat on, then that's Sara, SARA, .ivey, IVEY, at deq.ok.gov. And so I'm available by email anytime. I check it more often than I should, probably, even in talks. But yeah, I'm happy to help anybody with questions or resources or whatever else I can help you with as far as environmental education.
Well, hey, thank you so very much. And to all of our great listeners out there, I hope you get a chance to try some of these out for yourself. And everyone, have a great green day.
Yes. Bye-bye.
That wraps this episode of the Everyday Green Home Podcast. Ready to use what you learned? Get the show notes with all the resources mentioned in this episode. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast app so you never miss an episode. Thanks for listening and for leaving a review. And remember that living a little better and greener is easier than you think.